Hey guys, and welcome to Quality Shot. I'm really excited to be joined by Stephen from The Slice channel and podcast. How are you doing, mate?
Good, man. Good to be here. Happy to be on Quality Shot and talk tennis with you.
Yeah, was that a deliberate go back so you can show off the Slice tennis tees?
Just buy a shirt. I'm just kidding. But
where can you buy the apparel? Is it on the website?
Yeah, it is on the website. But yeah, man, it's good to be here.
Good. I might be asking you for a free one potentially, maybe later.
Okay, fair enough. We'll see what we can do.
So we're going to talk Australian Open, obviously just concluded, and also we'll touch on a little bits as well throughout the year and just get Stephen's thoughts on it. So in the men's, let's touch upon the men's first. Djokovic, we talked about it a little bit before. 9 semi-finals, 9 finals, and 9 Australian Open wins. So he's never lost a tournament at the Australian Open. As soon as he's got to semis, that's it. It's just almost like monster mode for him, and he's a machine. Medvedev, I think a lot of people, like I saw on your channel, your Instagram as well, a lot of people were picking Medvedev to win that final. And I thought he was going to be pretty competitive. I was thinking, okay, let's hopefully get a 4-5 setter because both semis went to straight sets. And I'm thinking, okay, let's see something interesting here. The first set, I was thinking, okay, this is not going to be too bad. And then he broke at the end, and I thought, that's okay. Medvedev will come back. He's been very solid. And he just didn't quite seem himself to me. He seemed really solid throughout most of the tournament. Not many unforced errors. Really solid off the backhand, especially. In my opinion, like when it's on song, probably one of the best two-handers on tour along with Djokovic, I would say. What did you think of the final as a whole? Was it a bit disappointing, or did you just think Djokovic was just way too good on the day?
Yeah, I think it was a combo of both for sure. Djokovic, it's kind of always what came first, the chicken or the egg? Did Medvedev self-destruct by himself, or did Djokovic make him self-destruct, right? And obviously with Djokovic, compared to anyone else that Medvedev had played up till that point, it's a different ball game, right? And Medvedev would have had supreme confidence against every player he played that he was the favorite and he was gonna win because he's, and although he had beaten Djokovic a couple times leading up to this match, it seemed like they started good. Like you said, the first set was actually very high level. I thought Djokovic went up 3-0, but then Medvedev broke and got it back to 3-all. And they were both crushing the ball, and it was fast. I was like, this is going to be a sweet match. This is going to be good tennis. And then, Djokovic won the first set, and then it looked like all good. And then even Medvedev broke right away. And I was like, okay, we got a match. And then it was just Djokovic turned it I didn't really notice that big of an uptick from Djokovic, but I just did notice that he just kept applying pressure on all these points, and he was getting a lot of returns in, which is what he does, right? So Medvedev wasn't getting free points off his first serve, kept getting returns to on his shoelaces, which is Djokovic is the master at doing that. It's so demoralizing, I think, as a pro tennis player when you're your first serve is your biggest weapon, and it's you're losing points on it. So. And then Medvedev, to me, just didn't meet the moment in that way, because you got to know that that's going to happen. You have to know that you're going to play shots and rallies where Djokovic is going to win them, where you should have won that point, right? That's why he's so good. He's so good defensively. And I talked about it on another podcast I did, is that, it feels like Medvedev just kind of panicked, and he went to I have to hit out of the court mode to win this. Which is the main, I gave a few keys to the match for Djokovic, was that he should go into Medvedev's forehand with backhand down the line, different things, obviously just stay close to the baseline, which he did, and dictate. But for Medvedev, my only thing was don't overplay, because I don't think Medvedev needs to overplay to win that match. And then after he got broken back in the second set, I saw him just try and overplay. And then he really just, his quality dropped. He started to missing so many shots. And Djokovic was just super solid. So, and that's the recipe for a quick match, I think. So that's what we saw.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think Medvedev, he got frustrated, didn't he? I think, and maybe it's to do with some of those returns and some of the points that he probably was expecting to win. And when you're playing against Djokovic, I feel like, as you said, some of the points that you would normally expect to win against other people, you won't win against him, because defensively he's so solid. And Medvedev, I think, especially on the forehand side, there were a lot of unforced errors. And when he broke in that second, you're thinking, well, maybe. But Djokovic, has, as you said, just applied pressure constantly to Medvedev. And maybe that's what brought out more unforced errors from him, I thought, because he just got frustrated. And I think personally, maybe along with someone like Thiem, Medvedev is another player who can potentially hit with Djokovic from the back of the court if he's solid enough, because he's, in terms of his unforced errors, he's normally very solid. But here, as you said, it just looked like he wanted to out hit Djokovic. He thought that's the only way to do it. But and he lost it a little bit. He looked a bit untethered, I thought, to a degree. Obviously, he smashed his racket, which happens. But he's a bit of a character, isn't he, Medvedev? I think for sure. There was that incident where his coach left halfway through the fourth set, and then he went on to win the fifth set 6-love. So that was an interesting one. He's definitely an interesting character. But did you think it was disappointing for Medvedev, because he's played a Grand Slam final before? I was expecting him to, no, he was 2-0 down in that Grand Slam final in the US Open against Nadal. Came back, obviously lost it in the end, but still very resilient. Here again, I mean, I was hoping he'd win the first one, because I'm thinking Djokovic has to then come back. It's probably going to be more exciting. As soon as he lost the first one, I was like, oh, who knows though? But I just think the resilience from him wasn't quite there. But did you just think, is that worrying a little bit? Do you think it's maybe the stage that he was on, or is it just a case of it's a bad match and also Djokovic played well and you don't need to worry about him going into the rest of the year?
Yeah, I do think it was disappointing from Medvedev. I think even if you were pulling for Djokovic, I mean, obviously, if you're a huge Djokovic fan, you'd have been happy that Medvedev didn't play well mentally. But I think, Medvedev committed an unforced error with his mentality in that match. Like you have to know that Djokovic is going to pressure you. He's not going to go away, and he's going to play good. So the game plan has to be in not reaction to that, because you want to play your own game, but you have to be ready for that. And it seemed like he didn't have anywhere to go once, what he was doing was working. And I'm like, I think he wanted to try and dictate the rallies, and that's what he tried to do more in the second set. But that can't turn into like trying to hit winners when you're not normally hitting winners as Medvedev's type of player. Medvedev likes to grind people down, move them around. And he just looked like he panicked. And that might be a case of not being physically there. Like it does take a physical toll on you to play 7 matches. So that was his 7th match, right, in 2 weeks. And he's just not used to doing that. He did make it to the US Open final. That was one time. He almost came back and beat Nadal. True. But these young guys still aren't that used to being in the 7th match in 2 weeks, and especially playing, one of the GOATs. So I think there's like this mental block of like, man, I'm down a set and I just got broken back and now I have to do something special to win. It's like, well, you don't actually, you just have to keep playing your game. But if you think that, you're already done, because that they have so much. It's just like, what's the default setting in that matchup? It's just somehow that's Djokovic is going to win, right? Because he's the better tennis player, but like B, the much more experienced. He's been there so many times. He just knows how to come back in finals if he has to do whatever, right? So it's a huge case of experience. It was a letdown from Medvedev for sure, because he was literally like the betting equal. Like even the odds makers had him as like an equal favorite to win, which is maybe a bit ridiculous, but like based on the way that Djokovic had played that tournament, like I don't think he played his best tennis at any point during that tournament. So it was great from Djokovic, just like absolutely solid on the day. And you could kind of see that against Karatsev that Djokovic was going to be solid, but that was definitely a missed opportunity, I think, for Medvedev. But, I picked actually Medvedev to win. I got roasted for that by Djokovic fans who were like, you're an idiot. How could you think that he wasn't going to win in 3? It's like, well, I think most people chose that to not happen, at least a 3-set victory. So it was an interesting match, not Medvedev's best, but really good from Djokovic.
Yeah, I agree. Don't worry, I went really left field with my predictions at the start, and I said I could have gone with the easy option of Djokovic. I went Tsitsipas to win the whole tournament, and after he beat Nadal, I thought, oh, maybe it might happen, maybe. And then it didn't quite. He got destroyed by Medvedev, but that was a pretty left field one for me. But I thought, why not go? Let's go a bit interesting, but it didn't pay off.
Got to be interesting. That's what I tried to do. I always feel like vote for the underdog unless it's my guy Federer, and people know that. But they're definitely. Yeah. They like to say "I told you so" if you get it wrong, which is fine.
Yeah, I'm a big Nadal fan, so.
Are you my guy?
Yeah,
nice.
Yeah, big Nadal fan. But Djokovic, I thought you're right. I don't think he played his best tennis at all, really, throughout. In spurts, I thought maybe in the final against Karatsev. But one thing I thought really stood out to me, and I think you mentioned this in your review actually in your podcast, and I remember seeing this stat and just thinking, wow, is that he served obviously the most aces in this tournament.
Right.
but not just the most aces, but he served over 100 aces, which I don't remember. And I'm not a huge stats guy, but I don't remember anyone saying that Djokovic has served 100 aces in a Grand Slam before.
Yeah.
And I just think that's something that clearly improved. I think the courts were a lot quicker. I think
Yeah.
Thiem said when he lost, he said the courts play a lot quicker than he's historically played. Like it's one of the quickest surfaces he's played on hard court. So maybe that obviously was a factor, but still the fact that I think second was Zverev with 86, I think it was, and no one else really had that type of serving capability. And Djokovic, you don't normally associate with having big serving. I don't think he is a huge server, but he was super accurate in terms of hitting the lines, hitting box, edges of the box and down the tee as well. He was just really good, and he also utilized, I thought, against Medvedev that shorter serve on the juice side, that kind of slice serve with a less pace on it. And more angled, and he hit quite a few aces using that one throughout the whole tournament as well. Have you been impressed with his development with serve? I guess it's probably due to Ivan Isavic as well, considering he was such a good server back in the day as well.
Yeah, no, I've been super impressed about that. That's one of the things that he's had to do, not had to, but obviously chosen to do, is to adapt that part of his game, because he used to, almost just. I mean, he's always had like a decent serve, but he kind of used to just start points with it, in a sense, but now it's a total weapon, and he's had to do that because Djokovic can do these long extended rallies and savage points that we've kind of come to notice, but he doesn't want to do them anymore. Like, I don't think that's just not you. I know everyone says age is just the number, but it's not. Like, you only have so many of those lunges in your tank, and it's just better for him to not have to do that as much. So if he can end points quicker, that's what the big serve is helping him do. It's get through matches quicker. It's also, to me, like the closest Djokovic was going out in this tournament, I think, was against Zverev, where he was, almost down a double break in 2 of the sets. And he got out of that with serving, like with big time. That was the best serving I've ever seen from him. It was I thought it was like the same serving that I've come to watch Federer with, where Federer's gotten older, right? But he's always had, to me, like the best serve on tour. So he's just like, I remember back at the Wimbledon 2019 final, which is a horrible memory for Federer fans, but I don't think Djokovic had a break point until the 4th set. So like it was, Federer's been able to just get out of things so often with that serve. And that's what Djokovic was doing against Zverev especially. And then, the whole tournament was just great for him. So even Isavic just beefs up that serve. Djokovic always has played with a heavier racket. So, just being able to utilize that, is great for him, and it's just gotten super accurate. And that's why he's had so much success at Wimbledon, because it has been good for the last few years. But this Australian Open with this court and just the way he was serving, it was like his best serving performance for sure. And that's it's going to be a problem for people in the future.
Yeah, I agree. And you made a really good point. It's definitely, I was going to say, he's probably looked at Federer and his longevity, and the reason why that's come about is because a big part is his serving, because it means that he gets 3 points and the points are shorter. It sets them up a lot easier. And I think you're right. Age isn't just a number in this sense, because Nadal has done the same thing. I think his serve, he's tried to beef up more as well. And he's winning more 3 points on that, or trying to. And Djokovic, I think you've seen him do it really effectively. And he's trying to add more to his serve and 1+ game, rather than just saying, like, before you wouldn't associate him with big serving or coming to the net or volleying. But now he's doing that. He's taking the ball on earlier, which normally he wouldn't do. But in the last few years, he's developed it, which has been fantastic.
Yeah, super good.
And Federer is interesting. You said about the serving, and Djokovic as well. The first serve is so key. Do you think then for him, it's a case of, obviously he's getting older, but he just is trying to be more aggressive in the points as well? Before, I think it was more attritional, but I feel like he tries to dictate more with the forehand, which is something which has been much improved. I feel like it's always been slide off the backhand. Like, it's one of the best, I think, two-handers on tour. But the forehand before was very solid, but it wasn't a weapon, maybe. But in the last 3-4 years, I feel like it's developed into that.
Yeah. I think it's gotten better. It's gotten, he's flat. He flattens it out more. Sorry, that's the backhand, forehand. But he uses that to sting people with it as quick as he can. Whereas, like, I think in the past, like, he'd spin it and try and move people around in the back of the court and then go for stuff. But I think now he even just has more ability to really get through the court with that shot. So it's and he uses it in very sneaky ways. He uses his backhand power in sneaky ways as well. So a lot of it's like a disguised power forehand that will really get people off balance or even like hit a winner. But I do think it's like, yeah, he's hitting his forehand as best as he ever has.
Just to finish off then on Djokovic, pretty controversial, but what do you think of the injury whole debacle or scenario? I say it's a debacle, but I mean, I think you could see he was injured during the match against Fritz because clearly all was bothering him anyway because he then conceded 2 sets and it was a bit of a battle through that. But after that, and I'm just looking at this really objectively, it didn't look like he had an issue at all, to be honest with you. I think after that he played Raonic, played Karatsev and Medvedev, and I think he said, and again, don't quote me on this, but I think he said it was an abdominal tear. And a lot of the ex-players and current players like slated him for it because they were like, if you've got that, you can't play, like you won't be able to move properly. So whether he just misspoke and it wasn't that, and it might be something more of a niggle, maybe it was that case. But I didn't think it really had much of a bearing. But what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, it was interesting. Like I watched the Fritz match, I was watching that alongside I was watching the Thiem Kyrgios match, and yeah, I thought it was just like a sprain or whatever, like he pulled it or something like that, but he said a tear, and then the MRI apparently showed, and he revealed this after the tournament, that it was in fact actually a tear, and it was like small and had gotten bigger. So like I mean, I'm not a sports science expert at all, but all the pro athletes were saying that, like, yeah, if it is a tear, there's no way you could play. So, and I know people like Fritz was kind of annoyed, like he was like, oh, like in the 3rd and 4th set he looked really injured, and in the 5th set he was miraculously perfect and just played. So it's always like been a little bit confusing with Djokovic. Like Patrick Mouratoglou said, like sometimes he'll look like he's going away or he'll be down and then he'll just turn it back on, but he doesn't fake an injury. And I didn't ever think he was faking an injury. I just didn't know what the heck was going on. But I guess he said he's making a self-promoted documentary about it. But I think some other people, like commenters on my channel, who have been very defensive over people getting mad at him for that, which is really not really. I don't think people are getting mad. They're just kind of saying like it's a story. So it's like you're talking about this injury that knocked a bunch of other people out of this tournament, abdominal tears, and it just doesn't affect you the same way, which kind of makes sense. He's more flexible, more takes care of his body, I think, a lot better than probably most other pros do. So maybe that paid off in that moment for him. But it was just kind of like a confusing thing for everyone, and just added to the drama of it winning and having to push through that. So good on him, honestly. Yeah, no, I agree. I think maybe it's because historically when he was a lot younger, I think he had moments where he'd retire from games, wouldn't he? Where maybe he had a little niggle, but he didn't want to battle through it because he might be down as well. And then his attitude has changed, I think, over the years. So I think you're kind of hoping that that's not the case. And clearly, I mean, he won the tournament, so whether he had a tear or not, I think it's kind of irrelevant. It's just if he had gone down 2 sets to Zverev, I would have been interested to see if that injury popped back up. Maybe we'll see it in the future. Maybe I guess we'll see in the future if it ever happens again. But the abdominal tears, actually, I want to touch upon that. There was quite a few injuries or walkovers in the end. Did you think it's a big part of that is the kind of the new norm, the quarantine, obviously with COVID around, etc. as well, and they're having to stay in their room a lot longer, and maybe before, they might be training as much or about the same as they were before, but before they'd be walking around doing whatever sightseeing. Now they're kind of confined to their rooms. Do you think that made a massive difference and kind of brought on more injuries? Huge, yeah. Djokovic said that as well. He said it's not normal, right, for all these world-class athletes to be getting injured, but yeah, it definitely did. Like I think there was only one person. I think Jen Brady, who made it to the final, obviously, of the women's side, was in hard quarantine. Like she couldn't leave her room for 14 days. But all the other players who did that, I think, lost pretty early. Tennis Sangren, who I like, he's an American guy. He talked about how there's no way that he could basically play after that. Like he said he lost his callus right on your hand. Like it's important if you play tennis to have that, or else it's gonna you're gonna get a blister. And he said he was just so unbelievably sore after the first couple matches in the pre-tournament to Australia that there's just no way to recover. And he said it's just, and it makes sense. Like I've played, I've been an athlete for a while, and like I can't imagine staying in a room. I've never stayed in a room for 2 weeks. I don't think anyone has unless you've had COVID, right? So you can do whatever you want there. You can do squats and stuff, but it's just not the same as you can't get that really like that lactic acid to your muscles that you're to get it into shape. So it was it was a disappointment, right? Like it was unfair totally for those players who had to play or to do that. The good thing is there's still a ton of prize money available. So if you're just even in the main draw, you got $100,000, which is like, that's worth it to me to take a first round loss. But who knows? Like it would have been crazy to see if like one of the really top players from either the men's or women's, I mean, like if like Nadal or Djokovic was in hard quarantine, to see how they would have performed. It would have been very interesting. But yeah, it's disappointing, but I think Australia is a lot crazier with their lockdowns than everyone else is. So like, I know for Miami, the Miami Open, they're probably not going to have to do any quarantine. They're just going to show up and play. Okay. Yeah, and so it's going to depend. I don't know. Like there was talk there about them like having to like, going somewhere and just playing all the tournaments there for like in like 6 weeks blocks. But I think they were kind of forgetting that most of the world is not like Australia. They kind of like, if you have COVID, you can't play, but if you don't, like you're fine. And they'll do like some type of bubble, I'm sure, in Miami. But we'll see.
Interesting. Yeah, I agree. I think it's difficult, isn't it? I saw Tennis Sangren pumping the weights, but that's not the same as hitting some balls with a tennis racket. So he's quite a character, isn't he? He seems like quite a funny guy. But
I think he's great. Yeah.
Yeah, he is. He's definitely a character for sure. In terms of the men's draw, just to wrap up on the men's draw, then Thiem was a pretty, I thought was a big surprise, him losing to Dimitrov. Obviously, he had a fantastic match against Kyrgios, as you said. You mentioned it previously. I thought that was one of my matches of the tournament. I just thought it was so good, and Kyrgios with the crowd as well. And yeah, he's very divisive, I think, but I think he's good for the game. And I really wanted. Even though I really like Thiem. I actually wanted Kyrgios to win that just to see how far he could go home at Australia and just see like can he make a good run of it in the tournament, because he's got the ability to, and he's one of these guys who obviously doesn't train, I don't think, as much as the other tennis players, and he admits it. He doesn't have a coach, and I just feel like if he had a coach, he'd probably be amazing. But he already is amazing, but he'd be even better than he is now. Were you surprised about Thiem losing to Dimitrov the way he did?
Yeah, I didn't watch that match, unfortunately, because for me, it's like literally the matches all start in like the middle of the night here. So it's like so savage. Next year, my goal is to be in Australia for the Australian Open. Yeah, so exactly. That's my goal. I'm going to get a media pass and be down there, but, or not even get a media pass, just go down there, just film from on the ground, just pull up a chair. But, I didn't watch that match, but it looked like Thiem physically went away. And that was, if I'm not mistaken, that was the match after the Kyrgios match, right? It seems like now, like it seems like in this tournament, if you went 5 sets, you were done. Like there was no way, like on the men's draw, nobody who went 5 sets was able to win. Like Djokovic didn't go 5 sets. Well, actually he did once. So yeah, Djokovic, I mean, he's a different breed, obviously. So, but everybody else, like you saw Tsitsipas come back from his match, or from Nadal win, get destroyed by Medvedev. Medvedev, he won in 5 against, who was it? Krajinovic, and then eventually, looks like he almost ran out a bit of his steam in the final. It's like, so then Thiem goes in, and Dimitrov plays well on a fast court. Like he's really good, and he was playing super well. I was gutted for Dimitrov that he lost to Karatsev, because if he wasn't injured, he would have won that match for sure. Like did you see any of that match? Like Dimitrov versus Karatsev? Like he couldn't serve the ball. Like he basically retired, like had to retire.
Yeah, he looked done.
He just had a back spasm, which is super weird, which is, and that would have been an awesome match, him and Djokovic, because Dimitrov, people forget he's very up and down, but he's been like top 5, right? Like he's been very good before, and he's like
hates the nickname Baby Fed, isn't it? He remember when he first broke onto the scene.
Exactly. Yeah. Unfortunately, he plays like Federer, which is like the most difficult way to play tennis. It requires the most amount of skill, and that's one of the crazy things for me about how well Federer's done, how much he's won, is that it's just like it's not the most repeatable.
Yeah, you wouldn't teach it, would you, to kids?
Yeah,
I always say you'd if you were to teach kids how to play tennis, you'd show them Djokovic, because I feel like he's very solid. It's quite repeatable. Yeah. But Federer is like amazing, but I feel like technically, even though he's so good, but as you said, it's so difficult to do. Like you just wouldn't teach that, I don't think.
No, you wouldn't. And like, yeah, when I learned how to play tennis, so like I was getting taught at the end of high school with lessons, and I was literally taught, the two-handed backhand, open stance like Djokovic, and like everything like Djokovic. And then, but Dimitrov plays beautiful tennis, and he plays, and he's good, right? And he made it to the semifinals. I remember in 2017 at the Australian Open, almost beat Nadal, right? Fifth set, 5 sets, and so he could have done some damage, but everyone was just getting injured. So yeah, but I wasn't that surprised about Thiem because it's a fast hard court. I mean, Thiem's a great hardcore player now, but he looked like he just went away physically and wasn't his day probably. And so yeah, disappointing for sure for Thiem, but he's gonna be looking good at the French Open. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I think he will. Karatsev, that was a really good run though, despite obviously getting a little bit of luck in the Dimitrov draw. The fact that it's his first ever Grand Slam, I thought it was incredible that he managed to get through.
Totally.
For me, that was kind of the biggest shock, I thought, of the draw.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Like it was wild. Like I had not heard it other than seeing his name and draws and stuff. I had not followed him at all before this. And then he was just chopping players so hard, like 6-0. There was one, I forget who it was. It wasn't Ilya Marchenko. I don't think it was somebody else, but it was like 6-0, 6-1, 6-0. That's the biggest beatdown of the tournament. And it was from, Karatsev to another guy. And then he beat Felix Auger-Aliassime coming from 2 sets down. Like, and then he beat Dimitrov. He definitely took advantage of like a soft part of the draw and got through, but still so crazy from him. I think he's going to go to like 50 in the world or something like that. So we'll be seeing more of him at the majors for the rest of this year, which will be cool. We'll see what other damage he can do, and if he can now play good when the spotlight's on him a bit more. But that was unbelievable. Like biggest Cinderella run we've ever seen, basically.
Yeah, I agree. That was incredible. Just then, kind of touching on the women's, which I think, I mean, Osaka is just a beast at the moment. I mean, the angles she hits at are just. It reminds me, actually, Medvedev didn't utilize them, I didn't think, against Djokovic. But Osaka, they both got similar in terms of some of the angles they find. I just think, how do you find that angle on the backhand and forehand? And they're just ridiculous when sometimes they hit even. And I think she's won, was it Australian Open or US Open in each of the last 4 years? So she won it 2 each, 2 Australian Opens, 2 US Opens, 4 Grand Slams. And I'm guessing she's going to look to win more than one this year because she's off to a good start and she looks pretty dominant, I would say as well. Were you impressed with the way that she kind of dismantled Serena and then also in the final against Jennifer Brady, who, it's her first Grand Slam final, but Osaka, I didn't think it was a match of the highest quality. I think their first serve percentages were both down and there are some errors, but eventually it picked up, I thought, in the second set, and Osaka, she raised her level a little bit, and Jennifer Brady just wasn't able to quite get to that level. What do you think of the final as a whole?
I actually didn't get to watch the final. I saw highlights from it and stuff, so I can't give you the most detailed analysis on it because I was just too many nights staying up in a row and I knew I was staying up the next night. But yeah, her performance against Serena was like, it just seemed like she was the favorite. Like she got down early and then I was like, well, it didn't seem like unlike Medvedev, she didn't panic and like try to get out of there quick. She just played her tennis and was just too good. But yeah, she's absolutely clutch. Like, what is the stat? Like, every time she's gotten to the quarterfinal of a major, she's won it, which is pretty great. It's 4 for that. So she's, I think, absolutely the best player on hard court in the women's side of things. We'll see what she can do at like the French Open and Wimbledon this year. I think they're both going to happen. I'm pretty sure Wimbledon's going to happen. They haven't confirmed it yet, but I couldn't see them not doing it again. Like it would be I know they got this big insurance bailout last year to cover their losses, but I don't think they would get that again. But yeah, she's a beast. I've loved her game. I remember watching her at 2018 Indian Wells court level, and it was just like she hits the ball so hard and so big, and she's just such a good athlete. So yeah, doesn't surprise me that she won it all, and doesn't surprise me that she beat Serena, and definitely doesn't surprise me that she beat Jen Brady in the final. But yeah. No, just super solid tournament for her.
Yeah, she's super solid. I'm really interested to see how she does on the clay because she hasn't done very well there on Wimbledon.
Right.
I think it's like the 3rd or 4th round is the further she's got in either tournament, which you'd expect her to do better, right? I know, of course, the surfaces play differently, etc. But given the game that she has, and just how talented she is, you'd expect her to do a little bit better there. So interesting to see how whether she can get to grips. I think it's more movement, isn't it, on the surfaces? If you can get to grips with how you move, especially on clay, sliding and being comfortable with it, then that kind of comes into it. And then same with the grass as well. But Jen Brady, there are a couple of I thought women who went on runs that were unexpected. I mean, Jennifer Brady, Siwoo, and also Pagula, the American as well. All three of them, I thought, obviously went on runs that I didn't expect them to get as far as they did. I thought it was a pretty wide open draw. After the first week was pretty solid, and you just thought all the seeds pretty much went through. And then next thing you know, Svitolina lost, and then all these other seeds lost. Andreescu lost quite early doors, and then Sophia Kenin lost, and it was just like open season. And next thing you know, the draw was like nothing what you're expecting.
Yeah, and we've seen that a lot in the last couple of years from the women's side for sure. Like the seeds going out early. But yeah, it was funny watching Pagula play because everyone is always just talking about her. She's like, oh, she's the Buffalo Bills owner's daughter, and like it was that classic thing where she's like, no, I'm a tennis player on my own. Everyone like talks about their just because she has a famous father or whatever or family, and then Jen Brady, coming through, just looking super solid, looking dangerous as the American women have like got it going. Like the American men are like absolutely lost. Like they don't even have like an ATP Cup team, but the American women, super solid. Like they have an amazing amount of players who are good and can like do it. So yeah, it was definitely an exciting draw for the women's because it was, like you said, so wide open and had a lot of opportunity there. But kind of like the men's, then it's like, there's a lot of opportunity, but then when they get to that final there where it's like they're knocking on the door gets shot by somebody who's like had a lot of experience in the finals and won a lot there. So it wasn't French Open like last year where Swiatek came out of nowhere and just won that. Like that was insane. But yeah, it was a good tournament on the women's side as well.
Yeah, Swiatek didn't she? She came out of nowhere. And it's interesting because Jennifer Brady made that run to the final, and you just hope that she takes that experience and then learns from it and then comes again. And you just hopefully she doesn't fall away. And I'm going to say someone who obviously is from Canada as well, but Eugenie Bouchard, right? Eugenie Bouchard. That's a really good example. Made the final of Wimbledon. And really, she does a lot of stuff outside of tennis. I know, but she just hasn't found that type of form again. And a lot of people sometimes do that. They have a fantastic run in a tournament, like a Grand Slam, and then they just kind of not fall by the wayside, but the pressure's there, and then there's a bit of a disappointment, kind of pick themselves up and then go again. And it takes a lot, I think, to do it. And it's a mentally draining sport, I think, from what I can see. Just a couple of things that I want to touch on, just touching upon the rest of the year, actually. So I guess sticking to the women's, do you think Serena's going to get that 24th slam?
I don't know. It's been a super, long time coming, right? Like if I'm not mistaken, the last slam she won was the Australian Open 2017. And if it's I feel like it's got to like turn, because she's had opportunities, right? Like she's had the stage set for her to do it. And I just don't feel like she has the confidence that she's the best. I don't think she feels like she's the best, or I don't think I feel like she's in the best like 5 players in the world. Like, you know what I mean? I feel like there's like on different surfaces, there's like, she just keeps coming up against somebody who's younger and better at this point in their career. And I'm definitely not going to put it past her because it's just one tournament where the stars have to align. Obviously she has the game and everything to do it. She's won 23 slams for a reason. But it seems to always be something coming up, and she looked good. Like it looked like this could almost have been the one to do it, right? The Australian Open, she was like looking very good, but then didn't turn out. So I think she probably will somehow. She Wimbledon didn't happen last year. She loves Wimbledon, so I could see that being a good opportunity for her. But I think any tournament she could win. If it's going to happen, I don't know. I'd say probably yes, more like it's better always to bet on these all-time GOAT champions than to not, as I learned at the Australian Open this year with Djokovic. So I would bet that she does get it, but I don't know where or when.
Yeah, I agree. I think maybe Wimbledon potentially, I guess you said, because I feel like the women are maybe not as solid on the grass. Same with the men as well, especially the younger players. They missed the year as well, which doesn't help. And it's such a unique tournament. Like, there's not many other tournaments played on the grass compared to clay or even the hard. So I feel like maybe that helps for sure. I guess then let's look into the French Open. You said Thiem's going to have a good chance there. Who are you looking at? You got Thiem, Djokovic, Tsitsipas, Nadal. What do you think?
Well, yeah, Nadal's obviously the favorite. Like, it's just not even a question anymore. So it's like a video game going into the French Open. It's like, how can somebody beat the final boss of Nadal, who's literally the most dominant team player in a sport tournament setting and in the history of sports. Like, it's so unbelievable, right? Like, we thought he might lose last year because it was like heavier settings, colder, the ball was moving slow, like, and he didn't lose the set. So he absolutely destroyed Djokovic in the final. Yeah, he's just the man. He's the clay goat. Like, he'll always be the clay goat. He's untouchable. He's not untouchable. He can lose, but like, he just doesn't, because he's great and he's good. Like, the only people that could beat him, I think, physically could beat him are Djokovic, Thiem. I don't know who. Like, I feel like Zverev might have a chance on if he's feeling good on clay. He's pretty good on clay, to be honest. Tsitsipas actually played pretty good against Djokovic. Could have won. Went down 2 sets and they almost brought it back. Got injured. So Medvedev's an absolute. He absolutely goes missing when the clay court season comes around. So I'm excited for Medvedev to like maybe win a match at the French Open. But there's really like 4 guys who could even be dangerous to him. So he had a very easy draw last year, to be honest. Like, I don't like to be the guy like pulling out easy draws, but he didn't play someone inside the top 70 until like the quarterfinals or something. It was pretty crazy. But I think that wasn't necessarily a good or a bad thing. It was just like, it could have been a bad thing if he ended up playing somebody super tough in the quarterfinals. I forget who he played, but yeah, he's just way too good. So it's all about Nadal. It's all about your guy at the French Open. He's the man to beat. And yeah, Thiem's been in the final there twice. He's probably the second best clay court player in the world at this point. So it'll be interesting. Djokovic, it's a history tournament, right? So Federer Federer will probably be playing, to be honest, if he doesn't get injured, which I don't think he'll have much of a chance. But I also didn't think that in 2019, he actually like did pretty well. Like, beat Wawrinka, made it to the semifinal, and then it was like actually a pretty tight 3-set match versus Nadal. But if Nadal wins there, 21 Grand Slams, most ever. If Djokovic wins there, career Grand Slam twice, which is he's the 3rd player ever to do that and the only player in this generation. So I feel like those 2 guys are it's like Nadal is like 85% chance winning. Djokovic 10%, Thiem 4.5%, and everyone else gets that 0.5% of the chance, I think.
That's fair enough. Actually, before we go on to Federer, is Nadal done on the hard court, do you think? And he's going to win another Grand Slam on the hard? Because I thought he looked quite good. Then Tsitsipas came back. Obviously, it's only the second time he's lost after being 2 sets up in a Grand Slam match. But I just feel like he's only won the Aussie Open once, US Open, I think 4 times. But what do you think? Do you think he's got a chance on the hard, or do you just think actually it's too late now?
Yeah, I think he got that. Did you say he's won the US Open 4 times?
Yeah.
Aussie Open once. Yeah. So I think he's got a chance at the US Open. I was actually pretty surprised that he won the US Open 2019 and 2017. Maybe not as much 2017 because he was playing pretty good on the hard court then. The only guy that was beating him on hard court was Federer every time they played. But he was like, I don't know. It's tough because if he has to play Djokovic or Federer, he hasn't beaten either of those guys on hard court in a slam since like 2013 or 2014. So people forget about that. It's like, he's really in those matchups, he's really gone away. He has gotten better on hard court, but I think all the young players are really good on hard court, so they don't fear him as much. And at the Australian Open, yeah, he was looking good, but then he definitely choked a bit in that 3rd set tiebreak. I'm sure you're watching the match. I like Nadal, even though I cheer for Federer. I've gotten more mature. I can watch all 3 of them and be just cheering for the good tennis. And Nadal's such a good guy, and he's such beautiful player. But he looked like he was very worried about losing that 3rd set. And he's like, if I lose this, I don't know how much more I have in the tank. And although he fought, he didn't go away physically, but after that, it was like he was at a disadvantage for the rest of that match for sure. So, and that was the first set he had lost since the last Australian Open, right? So, if he loses a set in the first 1 or 2 or 3 set rounds at the French Open, that'll be interesting. But as far as a hard court, I don't see him winning any more hard court slams. Personally, just because even if you played like a team at the Australian or at the US Open on those slower courts, like you gotta like almost take team there because he won it last year and he's like looks really good, and like Tsitsipas is great, Zverev's great, Medvedev's so good. There's just so many good players on hard, not very many good players on clay, so that's why he has a massive advantage. And then I can't see him winning Wimbledon either. So unless he doesn't have to play, if he doesn't have to play Federer or Djokovic at any of these, he has a chance. But if he does, I don't think he has a chance.
Yeah, he hasn't been on, as you said, hasn't been on the hard in years. So something that, it's interesting. Can Federer then? Is Federer going to win any more Grand Slams? Do you think?
It's such a question mark for us Fed fans because he
surely Wimbledon's the best. The Wimbledon's probably the best bet, right?
Yeah, for sure. I think he could do what he did. Like in 2019, I thought that was basically his last year of tennis. And then he actually ended up playing like a really good year. So he played the whole clay swing. And I was basically in the mode of like, man, it's just so much fun to be able to watch him play one more match. Just one more match. It's always like, because I honestly thought he was going to kind of retire whenever. And then he ended up like playing, like I said, pretty good at the French Open. I was like, okay, this is sick. Bionic man. I don't know how he keeps doing this. And then, you could argue he was easily the best player at Wimbledon that year, but somehow lost to Djokovic in the final when he literally won. He won in every single statistical category in that match by quite a bit, except for tiebreakers, and then lost the match. So he was right there. Obviously, he could have won. He obviously had the level to win it. I feel like he could play at that level again at Wimbledon if he doesn't have his knee bothering him, and if he plays from Doha the rest of the season, he'll get that. He might lose a lot of matches quick, I think. And especially on the clay, I don't know. I hope he doesn't play that much, to be honest. But he could get that match fitness back where you're like, you're exhausted and then you're still having to like hit shots, which is it's hard to practice that. I heard his fitness trainer, Pierre Pagnini, talking about how they've just started to do that, like work the player to exhaustion and then make them play points and drills and stuff. Because it's hard to replicate that outside of a match. With adrenaline and stuff, it's almost impossible to replicate. So we'll see where he gets to that. But I'm not going to discount him out. His best chance is definitely Wimbledon if he somehow doesn't have to play Djokovic. I still think he could beat Djokovic at Wimbledon. Like he showed that he definitely can in 2019, but that was also 2 years ago now. So he's 40. He's going to be 40 at that point, and that's pretty old. And but we'll see. I don't know. He's got the best sports training and medicine and all the things at his fingertips. So we'll see what he can do.
Yeah. If I had to push you, who's going to finish on the most Grand Slams?
It's tough. It's it's between between Nadal and Djokovic, I think, at this point. And I keep looking at Djokovic before the Australian Open this year. I was like, he's supposed to win 4 slams to beat them right now, even if Nadal doesn't get any more, which he probably will win the French Open. So I could see them both ending up at like 21 or something, or like 22. But I don't know. Djokovic has definitely got momentum, but I'm looking at like, what if Djokovic didn't win this year's Australian Open? What if he lost to someone? Then he would have been at the French Open. He wouldn't have had, and he wouldn't be the favorite there either. And so doesn't win. He goes into Wimbledon not having won a slam for like a year and a half. That's a pretty big gap. But I mean, that's a what if, right? So he did win. So he's right there. He could do it. It feels like Djokovic has the most momentum to keep winning for sure. So he seems like the guy, but it's weird because there's nobody coming up that's like a menace on the Grand Slams. Team is as close as we got, but like, it was weird. Like when Federer was winning all these slams, he had the 2 other greatest players of all time following him right up, right? So I was thinking about that last night, actually, as a Federer fan. I was like, how many slams, maybe you can answer this. How many slams would Federer have if Nadal and Djokovic didn't exist?
Oh, he would have won the French probably. He probably would have won that 4 or 5 times, I'd imagine. Yeah. There's not that many clay court players around. So right. He'd probably be on like 26, 27 slams, I'd assume. At least.
Yeah, I honestly think it would be like 30 35.
Well, he
something
probably
like
would
that.
have won as many as Serena, because that's a very similar parallel, I'd say. Because Serena hasn't really had the Djokovic or Nadal's, and they're similar age as well. And I feel
Totally.
like that's probably a good parallel. So maybe, yeah, you're right. Maybe
Yeah,
it's
like he might not have been as driven to keep playing and playing at the high level, but you got to think about all the times he lost in like quarterfinals, semifinals to just those guys. You know, I mean, it's not like a million times, but and when he's got to the finals, he's had a pretty good percentage. Like I think it's 31 finals and 20 wins, I think, or 30 finals and 20 wins. But I was just thinking about that. It was just in my fantasy land because, like, seriously, yeah, he would have won the French Open probably 4, 5, or 6 times, and then all the other times, like, just yeah, it would have been wild. But you know, it's just the time of the golden age of men's tennis has been unbelievable to watch. So much. The guys who are coming up next have massive shoes to fill, and it's going to be tough. But there's lots of talent. It's going to be fun, so it'll still be good. It just won't be the same.
Yeah, agreed. Make sure that we can enjoy it while it's here, because I think it'll come to an end at some point, pretty in
Sure.
the next few years. Well, you'd assume. Who knows? Anything you want to touch on before we wrap up?
No, man, it's like I just love that. You know, I love that you're chatting tennis, like on the Quality Shot. Do you call it a podcast or a YouTube channel? Some
Just
people,
a YouTube channel. Yeah, it's fine.
yeah. No, it's great. Thanks for having me on. And like I think the tennis is at a great spot right now. It's a very interesting time. Like the last couple of years, like we've thought about this transition to the next gen. They keep disappointing us, or not. If you're whoever they're playing, they always take out one of the guys. You know what I mean? Like one of the big 3 falls at each slam. Like 2019 Australian Open, it was Federer losing to Tsitsipas. 2019 French Open, it was Djokovic losing to Thiem. And then, it's always one of them, but then they don't get that one. And unless Djokovic defaults and Nadal doesn't show up and Federer doesn't show up, then Thiem wins the slam. But we'll see how this transition works. But it's always exciting. Looking forward to the slams and just the tennis in general. We'll see how this year can hopefully keep going with coronavirus land. But yeah.
No, I agree 100%. And hopefully we can catch up again soon. I really enjoyed it. And guys as well, please do check out Stephen's channel and also podcast The Slice. I'll put your details in the description as well, and at the end of the video, so you can click on it, go to his YouTube channel, go and subscribe. I'm sure most people have anyway, to be honest with you, knowing how long you've been about. But yeah, I really appreciate it, and we can catch up again because there's a lot to talk about. I didn't even get to talk to you about your experiences as a reporter as well in interviews, because I wanted to, but I didn't want to keep you too long, so we can do that.
Oh, good. All good. Yeah, appreciate it, my man. Thanks for having me on. I'll definitely share this video on our community page on the channel and stuff. And yeah, good luck. Keep doing your thing. It's awesome.
Thanks very much, mate. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure.